So we scaled actually really rather quick to the point in our very first year. So we were probably closing about 100 to 200 a month, just the two of us, like really, really, really quickly. And so, again, 24, you're like, holy crap, like, this is great. So very quickly he was like, we have to hire, we have to scale. We need, like, there's too much business. We can't do this all. And I was really reluctant because I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know how to train. I don't even know, like, the only training I had was get here at 6 o'clock in the morning and scrape the job boards like that. Like, that was the training. And then I learned how to use LinkedIn. And so hiring was very difficult. I believe in hiring 2 people at once because I think naturally 50% is going to work out. So I'm not going to put in all of my training and take away from my business to train just one person when I know the likelihood of them working out isn't great. Reason being is because some people they just don't have the gift, but they also just don't like it. So we brought in 2. So there was very quickly 4 of us, very quickly realized, like, within a few months. I think it's a 90-day process. So within like 90 to 6 months, I was like, oh, this is not a good idea. We're going to hire 2 more. So it's like, we kind of just kept trying to, like, bring in 2, and then we got to 6. So we got to 6 and we're like, oh, wow, this is really happening for us. And then we got to probably about 15 to 20 clients at that point, multiple jobs that they needed. So it was like the wild, wild west for us. And so we kept saying, like, do we bring in more people? I feel like we're leaving money on the table. Now, the Brianna now knows that the efficiencies weren't the way they should be, that we weren't paying attention to how great the clients were. So now I am really big advocate for firing clients. If you're working, if you're working anything, contingency, retained, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. You have to fire the clients to work out for you. So I actually think if I could go, like, well, how I will build, because I'm going to build again, I'm going to do 6 to 8 people teams. I think that's sustainable, that's efficient, and that people can hold tight to their numbers.
Perfect. So how much time did it take for you to go from 2 people to 6 people? About a year?
A year. Yeah.
Wow, that's fast. That's really, really fast. No, that's perfect. You mentioned something very interesting, right? Like hiring in pairs. It's something we do in our sales setup as well, because, 2 people who are hired together, they, inadvertently, they kind of, salespeople are inherently competitive. So they start competing with each other, making, both of them better than they could have been otherwise, right? So that's the logic why we hire in pairs. Was it the same or any other kind of thought process?
Yeah, a very similar logic. So my boss did that. So that's something I stole from my boss. And I was, he was very, he liked to hire people that, went to college, and I didn't. I went to fashion school. And so I was against this superstar from enterprise, rent a car that had a degree. And I was so hungry. I wanted to make sure, and they very much pitted you against each other. So I wanted to make sure that I did a better job than she did because I was considered the underdog. So I kind of took that same vibe, and to your thing was like, not only are you kind of competing against each other, but more importantly, I want you to bond over what you're going through at the same time. So like for me, I think about who my best friend is now, and it was someone that I went through a pregnancy and had a baby within 4 days of us. It's because we're bonding during we're going through the same thing, and we're not being like, oh my God, am I crazy? Or is this normal? And I think that when you're doing sales too, it's like, oh my God, are people getting back to your messages? No, me too. Hey, what's working for you? So it instantly becomes a really cool, just mini team, essentially, where they get to bond, they get to vent, they get to push each other. And I really think 2 is great, because when you have 3 people, there's always a third person out. Now I don't know if you want to talk about this now or later, I did eventually get to hiring 6 at a time.
Oh, wow.
Which was an experiment. It actually went really, really, really well because I had tested it a few times, because in theory, I kept with the 2s. I kept with the even numbers. And it was great.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, but hiring 6 people at a time can really, really, have a large effect on your cash flow situation, right? So, so that brings me to this topic, right? Like, you mentioned in the past that it's very difficult to scale a contingent business beyond 15 recruiters.
Yeah.
So you probably, so take us through your journey of doing that. Like you probably, you're probably speaking from the experience. What was it like? How did you scale? How did you scale back? What made you realize that, okay, contingent only, this is probably the ceiling. And after that, we have to do something else, right? So what was the thought process?
Yeah. So, I actually, the past 15 came from, I don't know if the audience is aware of Bink, but Bink was the first company, recruiting company to be sold to a public company, to a tech company, which was Robinhood. And so I happened to reach out to that founder, and it's just like, kind of a newbie. I'm like, hey, how do you do it? Like I was really looking up to him. Like that was a while back. And, he's like, well, we do RPO now. Because my contingency, we kept getting to that 15 and it kept failing. And I was like, you don't know what you're doing. So I was kind of like, still didn't care. So I kept trying to grow, and it would get to like 12 and I would feel a lot of pain. And then I would be like, okay, no, we can get past this. And so every time I would get to 15 and around there, it would start to crumble. And here's why. It's kind of like Wolf of Wall Street. If anyone has seen that, right? It's like this crazy room, and definitely we were all in office for sure. And then I ended up getting other offices because there's so much activity. I mean, we had 50 clients at any given moment, 50 clients. And you got to think at least 3 to 5 jobs probably each, right? That's a lot of jobs to fill. And I was still believe in being very niche. So there was really not too many off jobs all in the same, ecosystem. But there'll be outliers. They'll be the ones who can calm the noise. They can really focus and harness their own desk. But then there's other ones where you're like 50 clients times 5. Like how many jobs is that to fill? And they're like, oh my God, it's too much. Like the brain can't process correctly. You have to niche. You have to have like 3 to 5 roles to fill. Otherwise, you become what's fake busy. So the more people I had, the more fake busy stats I had, and then the more rules I had to put into place, the more like KPIs I had to have, because you can't watch over everything, and nor do I want to. And then I started putting managers in place. But guess what? Those managers always tended to be my best people. I don't want my best people managing because I'm taking them away from production. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to take someone that's good, that likes to do this, maybe not my heavy hitter, that's good, and then they're going to run the team, right? But then here's what happens with salespeople. Salespeople only want to be mentored by the top dog.
Yeah.
So then it's
Absolutely.
like the respect. So then the respect goes a little bit differently, right? So they're like, why am I listening to this person? They're not the top person. I want to learn from you or this person. So it became really, really, really challenging. So the way that I fought through that was I made mini teams of 6 or 8, and I had 3 of them. And I chose them accordingly. I chose them between like the highers and the lowers, because I wanted them to just feed off of each other, the same kind of notion how I do in training. And that worked really, really well. So definitely mini teams. But again, what happened was, when we're all coming together, all running off of the same jobs, like it just didn't work. We had to get so granular to the point that I had to, or the managers had to assign jobs on a 3-week basis. So it was no longer a free for all. So this was more of like, hey, you all are really great, but you need to be told what to do. And until you get your numbers at a consistent level for 6 months, we got to assign you jobs. You cannot pick your jobs anymore. So then we had to do that. And then for me, I don't like micromanaging at all, but it was a wild house. So it was something that we had to do. And then I didn't like it as much.